Hello, my name is Jones, and today we are going to look at decision making and problem solving. So, within this lesson, we are going to look at the different steps that are there in decision making, and I've tried to put the illustration there so that you can follow it. Otherwise, this is the main part that we're going to look at the steps in problem solving process, or the steps in decision making. So, we are going to look at all this. So, the general objective of this lesson is that at the end of the lecture, you should be able to express an understanding of problem solving and decision making. So the illustration here of the picture that I'm trying to, the things that I'll talk about, decision making process. Okay, so the decision making, the problem making process, these are the same. Okay, they are the same, or most of the time, we just look at the steps that have similar actions. So the decision making process steps and the problem solving steps, here we can say they are the same. Okay, so the general objective is that you should have an understanding of problem solving and decision making. Then the specific objective is that at the end of the lecture, you should be able to define decision making, you should be able to state the types of decision making. You should be able to outline the steps involved in a decision making process, and you should be able to state factors that influence decision making. You should be able to define problem solving, outline the problem solving process. Okay, within the introduction, that part we have shown you the problem making process or the steps there. And then you should also be able to state the obstacles in the problem solving. Okay, so to begin this lesson, we can say decision making is a daily activity for any human being. So each and every time that we live on this earth, we make different decisions. Okay, so there is no exception about one living a life without making decisions. Okay, so each and every challenges, steps that we face in life, you have to make a decision. But when it comes to business organization, okay, this decision making becomes a habit and a process as well. Okay, so you will not just make decisions from without. There are policies of the company that you have to refer to, and there are certain things, minutes or other um, plans of actions that you need to refer to. Okay, so within each and every day of your life you make a decision, but in an organization, okay, the decision making is a habit, but you need to follow certain prescribed steps. So the effectiveness and the successness of any decision that we make is going to determine the profits that we are going to realize as an organization. And if it is not successful, it is going to bring about losses. Therefore, corporate decision making process is the most critical process in any organization. In a decision making process, we choose course of action from a few possible alternatives. In the process of decision making, we may use many tools, techniques, and perceptions. Okay, on the other hand, problem solving is or can be looked at as an art, okay, and there are no universal approaches that one can take to solving problems. Okay, so now let us define decision making. In defining decision making, we can say it is a cognitive process that results in the selection of a course of action among several alternatives. So there will be a lot of alternatives, or there will be certain alternatives that you have to look at before you can choose the best decision of all the alternatives that you have lined up for you. So you need to choose one that is going to fit well with the problem that you are facing. So there are types of decision making that we need to consider in an organization or as we operate within an organization. So the mnemonic for this one is MAJA, that is merger. So that is the first classification that we can look up at in that decision making. So the M is for mechanistic decision. So when you talk of mechanistic decision, we are looking at the types of decision that are routine and repetitive in nature. They occur in a situation with a limited number of decision variables where the outcomes of each alternative is known. So these are decisions that we make and they determine the outcome. Okay, so you know the alternative outcome. So mechanistic decision helps us to solve problems by habitual response, standards operating procedure, or lyrical routines. Tools used for this type are charts, lists, matrices, decision trees, and these are useful in our daily routine and scheduled activities. Then there is the analytical decision. This involves a problem with a large number of decision variables, where the outcomes of each decision's alternative can be computed. So, computation techniques are used to find solutions to analytical decisions. So, here we can use linear programming in finding solutions to analytical decisions. We can use networking analysis. We can use inventory recorder model or queuing theory or statistical analysis, okay, to come up with the analytical decisions. Okay, then there's judgmental decisions. This involves a problem with a limited number of decision variables, but the outcomes of a decision alternatives are known. So, good judgment is needed to increase the possibility of desired outcomes. These types of decisions are useful in marketing investment and to solve personnel problems. So that is the judgmental decisions. Then there's the adaptive decisions. It involves a problem with a large number of decision variables where outcomes are not predictable. Because of uncertainty of such problems, decision makers are not able to agree on their nature or the decision strategies. Such ill structured problems usually require the contribution of many people with a diverse technical backgrounds. Strategies have to be modified to accommodate new development in technology and environment. Like you, when you're doing a research, you are going to have certain research findings, okay, that you can use as a solution to the problem that you might have been facing. Hence, this will help you to make up a decision looking at the research findings. It also involves a problem with a limited number of decision variables, but the outcomes of decision alternatives are known. Good judgment is needed to increase the possibility of desired outcomes. You can have numerous research findings, okay, but coming up with the best solution, best alternative to your problem that you're facing, the challenge that you're facing, here we are saying it requires good judgment. So these types of decisions are useful in marketing, investment, and also to solve personnel problems. Let us also look at another classification of managerial decision making. This is looked at in terms of levels within management. So we have the strategic level, administrative level, and the operative level. So when you're talking of the topmost, the top, middle, and then the operative level. So the topmost there, we look at strategic decisions. Okay, these are made by top executives that commit variable urgency resources to achieve major long-term goals. So the strategic decisions here are made, let's say they are made by the let's say the owners, okay, the owners or the people that have been put on top, okay, of the management team of an organization so that they can come up with the long-term goals of their organization. So these are the people that have an awareness of the resources that are valuable, okay, and they will look at these resources that are valuable in order to sponsor long-term goals. Then we have administrative decisions. Okay, these are made by middle level. Okay, so the first one was by top level, which is strategic decision. Then administrative decisions are made by middle level managers to resolve unusual problems and develop innovative methods for improving agency function. Okay, then at the bottom, we have operational decisions. Okay, so operational decisions are routine decisions governing day to day events that have been delegated to first level managers and are made according to prescribed rules, regulations, and instructions. Instructions coming from middle management or instructions coming from top management. So these are the everyday to day decisions that are made by line managers in the operation of the company. Okay, so what are some of the steps that are involved in decision making? Okay, so the steps that are involved in decision making, when you have a problem, you need to come up with a decision. So we are looking at steps that are similar to problem solving. Okay, we are looking at the process of decision making, which is similar to the problem solving process. Okay, so we can look at it in terms of creating problem solving and the likes, but we are looking at similar steps. Okay, similar steps in problem solving and in the process of decision making. Okay, so the mnemonic here that we can use to remember these steps is the IDAGS Pi or Ideas Pi. Okay, so IDAGS SPI and Ideas Pi, that is IDEASPI. Okay, these can help you remember the the steps that are involved in decision making. So the first I is for identifying the problem. The first I is for identifying the problem. Okay, so you find other authors who look at it at just identifying the problems, then others are going to combine the D, which is diagnosing the problem. Okay, so for the purpose of this presentation, we have looked at identifying problem and diagnosing problem as the one entity. So the first step in decision making process is the clear identification of who opportunities or the diagnosis of the problems that require decisions. So if you do not know the problem that you have, how then are you going to solve that problem if you do not know? Okay, it's when you have identified the problem, then that is when it will be required of you to make decisions in order for you to avoid the problem that you have identified. So the steps involved in decision making requires that you identify and diagnose the problem. Okay, then discrepancies between actual and desired conditions will alert a manager to a potential opportunity or problem. So you have a goal through, okay, you have a goal where you are at point A and you have to reach point B. So when you have not reached point B, as in one of the set key performance indicators, you need to see as to you need to look at what could have affected you not to reach the point B or the desired point that you wanted to see. It is important to realize that sometimes at a distance, you might look at a problem to be very small, but the problem deep down, it is a, it has got big roots okay, or it is quite big. Okay, at a distance, you might just look at, oh no, this is just like a simple problem. This is the way I'm going to solve it. Okay, people try to look at just the success part of something, but they do not look at the burden of reaching that success. So never undermine any problem. There's no problem which is too small. There's no problem that we can look at to be too big. What is important is knowing the root cause of that problem so that you can come up with decisions that will help that problem. Even a small problem can become a big problem. Okay, even a big problem can be looked at as a small problem if you come up with good decisions. Okay, then there is identifying objectives. Objectives will reflect the results the organization that the organization wants to attain. Objectives are often referred to as targets or standards. Okay, so it is important each and every day you are working or you come on duty that you set certain standards of what you want to achieve based on the clientele that you have for that day, based on the clientele that you have within the community. So you need to have objectives. See that the resources that you have will help you to attain the objectives. Objectives can be expressed for long spans of time, that is, years or decade, or for short spans of time, which can be hours, days, or months. Okay, so long range objectives usually direct much of the strategic decision making of the organization, while short range objectives usually guide operational decision making. Regardless of the time frame, objectives will guide ensuing decision-making process. Then there is generating alternatives as another step in the problem solving. So once an opportunity has been identified or a problem has been diagnosed correctly, a manager develops various ways to achieve objectives and to solve the problem. Remember, it is critical to come up with the best diagnosis, okay, of your problem. If you don't diagnose your problem correctly, you are going to see that the problem is not going. Okay, the problem will not be fought. Imagine you are treating malaria, and one of the signs and symptoms in malaria is diarrhea and is fever. If you concentrate on just treating the fever and the diarrhea, the malaria will still persist. So it's important to um, generate alternatives and also uproot the main cause of the problem that you have. So that requires effective decision making. So generating alternatives as a step requires creativity and it requires imagination. In generating alternatives, the manager must keep in mind the goals and the objectives that he or she is trying to achieve. Ideally, several different alternatives will emerge, and in this way, the manager increases the likelihood that many good alternative courses of action will be considered and evaluated. Then there is evaluating alternatives. Okay, so this in the steps that we're discussing is the fourth step. Okay, so in the process, and this process involves determining the value or the adequacy of alternatives that you have generated. Once you have gathered the alternatives, you need to evaluate, okay, and determine the value or the adequacy of alternatives that you have generated. One way of solving problems in another country, in another situation, may not be the best solution of solving another problem in a different country, different setup, different context. So these steps we are saying you need to determine the value or the adequacy, okay, of all the alternatives that you have generated. So you need to look at which solution is the best. Okay, fundamental to this step is the ability to assess the value or relative advantage and disadvantage of each alternatives under consideration. The result should be a ranking of alternatives. You can rank the alternatives which one is can come as priority. Okay, then there's the act of choice. You have a pool of alternatives. Now you need to choose. So we are looking at the act of choice. Decision making is commonly associated with making the final choice. Although choosing an alternative would seem to be a straightforward proposition, simply consider all the alternatives and select the one that best solves the problem. Okay, so the act of choice here, because of the best decisions are often based on careful judgment, hence making a good decision should involve and it involves careful examining of all facts. It involves determining whether sufficient information is available and finally selecting of the best alternative. Then there is the implementation, putting to action. When decision involve taking action or making changes, choosing ways to put these actions or changes into effect becomes an essential managerial task. The keys to effective implementations, okay, are sensitivity to those who will be affected by the decision and proper planning consideration of the resources necessary to carry out the decision. Those who will be affected by the decision must understand the choice and why it was made. That is, the decision must be accepted and supported by the people who are responsible for its implementation. So you have people, but within the organization, especially at operational level, that should be involved in implementing these decisions. So they should understand why you are implementing such actions. Okay, so this will promote cooperation to promote collaboration. So these needs can be met by involving employees in early stages of decision process so that they will be motivated and committed to the successful implementation. So the workers will understand as to why that decision has been made. Okay, so it will increase innovation. The workers will be motivated because they understand the final results and the benefits that lie forward. Then there's monitoring and evaluation. When you have put your alternative into action, it should not end there. You need to monitor. Okay, you need to monitor the implementation. You need to evaluate the results that are coming out of the implementation, if at all they are meeting the standards. So no decision making process is complete until the impact of the decision has been evaluated. Managers must observe the impact of the decision as objectively as possible and take further collective action if it becomes necessary. Monitoring the decision is useful whether the feedback is positive or negative. Okay, from negativity, we improve ourselves. From positivity, we still improve ourselves or we get the achieved results or the achieved standard. So we do not look down on critics. Critics helps us to improve. Okay, so positive feedback will indicate the decision is working and that it should be continued and perhaps applied elsewhere within the organization. So that is when you have positive feedback. Then negative feedback will indicate either that the implementation requires more time, resources, effort, or planning than originally thought, or that the decision was a poor one and needs to be re-examined. Okay, so that is what negative feedback may indicate. Okay, so with the steps of decision making discussed, let us now look at factors that may influence decision making. We are looking at factors that may influence decision making. So, to start with, it can be personal factors like interpersonal relationship and consciousness of what people want. So, personal factors, the people that you have within the organization may have certain personal preferences, okay, personal weaknesses, okay, personal strength that they would need to be utilized but not being utilized. So, personal factors here can be um, you decide to choose another person's decisions or alternative that was put forward, and then you ignore the decisions that the other group, okay, or crop of employees were put forward. So you can find that there is a sabotage, okay, of the decision that is made. So personal factors, okay, how motivated an individual is with the working condition. So all these may influence our decision making. Then organizational factors such as events in the organization, knowledge from research and development, and also expectation of individuals or supervisors. Okay, so that is the second factor that may influence decision making. Okay, a command authority in fear of whom? Offending the people in authority, hence individuals will now comply. So then information which is wrong may also lead to wrong decision making. And also the advice and communication. Okay, if at all there is lack of communication and wrong advice, it may lead to poor decisions. Okay, so those are some of the factors that we can look at to influence decision making. Now, let us look at another part of our lesson that has to do with the problem solving. Okay, so this is another part we're discussing decision making. Now we're looking at another part which has to do with problem solving. Problem solving requires good decision making, and that's why we are discussing them under one page. So problem solving, we are saying it is also a mental process, it's also a cognitive process that will involve discovering, analyzing, and solving problems. Okay, so that is the definition of problem solving. Mental process that involves discovering, analyzing, and solving problems. Okay, so what are some of the steps involved in problem solving? You refer to the steps involved in decision making. So we are saying identify the problem. Remember, in decision making, we're saying identify and diagnose the problem. So identify the problem here is one of the steps that is involved in the decision in problem solving. While it may seem like an obvious step, identifying the problem is not always as simple as it sounds. There are some people who face certain problems and they have not necessarily identified and they have not yet necessarily identified where the problem is coming from. So it is important to identify the problem. Okay, in some cases, people might mistakenly identify the wrong source of a problem, and this will make attempts to solve it inefficient or even useless. Okay, so I gave an example of one suffering from malaria. You just keep on giving ORS, ORS. Okay, so this person wants to recover from malaria. So you need to get to the root cause. Once you solve the malaria problem, even the diarrhea coming because of malaria, it will go. Okay, so to stop a fire, don't direct your water at the smoke. Direct your water, okay, at the root of the fire. Then you will not see the smoke. So that is it. Just an example on how best to solve problems. So from identifying the problem, then you define the problem. So after the problem has been identified, it is important to fully define the problem so that it can be solved. Okay, so this is the second step in problem solving. Then the third step is forming a strategy. The next step is to develop a strategy to solve the problem. The approach used will vary depending upon the situation and the individual's unique preference. Okay, so then the fourth stage is organizing information. Before coming up with a solution, we need to first organize the available information. Okay, so we may ask ourselves questions like, what do we know about the problem? Okay, what don't we know about the about the problem? So you can see the similarities of the steps of decision making and problem solving. Okay, then the more information that is available, the better prepared will be to come up with an accurate solution. Okay, then the fifth step, okay, in problem solving is allocating resources. Of course, we don't always have unlimited money, time, and other resources to solve a problem. Okay, so allocating of resources to solve a problem is quite important so that those resources are going to fit in the solving of the problem. So before you begin to solve a problem, you need to determine priority how high the priority is. If it is an important problem, it is probably worth allocating more resources, okay, in trying to solve that problem. If, however, it is a fairly unimportant problem, then you do not want to spend too much of your variable resources into coming up with a solution. Then there is monitoring over progress. Okay, this should be the sixth step in problem solving. Effective problem solvers tend to monitor their progress as they work towards a solution. If they are not making good progress towards reaching their goal, they will re-evaluate uh, their approach or look for new strategies. Then evaluating the results. Okay, after a solution has been reached, it is important to evaluate the results to determine if it is the best possible solution to the problem. This evaluation might be immediate or it can be delayed. It can be formative or it can be summative. Meaning, we're saying it can be during the process of implementation, okay, of the decision that was made, or it can be done at the end. Okay, let us now look at obstacles in problem solving. Some of the obstacles in problem solving may include lack of resources, okay, limited time, scarce information sources, inadequate data, personality or attitude of supervisors to solve the problem, and also stress. Okay, so these are some of the things that I had prepared for you so that we can discuss to do with decision making and problem solving. You need to examine the the difference that is there between the steps that are involved in decision making and the steps that are there in problem solving, and see how in problem solving, okay, these steps have been used in order to solve the problem. Whilst making a decision, decisions are made, but it does not mean that when decisions have been made, then the problem has been solved. Okay, let me give you an assignment to look at five challenges that are faced by decision makers in an organization. These for this assignment, you find answers within my Jones HM app. Okay, where I've calculated challenges that are faced by decision makers. Okay, so from me, I'm saying thank you for listening, and please look out for our next lesson that we are going to record. Okay, that we're going to record in management. For now, we've just been looking at decision making and problem solving. We have looked at the different steps that are there in problem solving. We have looked at the different steps that are there in decision making, and we have seen how they are related. Okay, so we have looked at how they are related and how decision making helps to solve problems. So please, I'm saying thank you and keep studying.